Hey there! Time beats us. A lot of you have been asking about the Inkcyclopedia that I did for FB Geeks and when it would return, why, what happened, etc. Well, quite simply, the answer is time. I'm extremely busy. I'm rounding up a PhD. As you know, I'm still trying to throw out as many videos as I can for my channel, and at some point something had to give. There was no fallout with FB Geeks or anything of that nature. Don't worry about that. It's just that sometimes life interferes, guys. So here's the deal. I hope to one day bring back Inkcyclopedia because I enjoy doing it, but you have to bear in mind that that was, of all the videos I did, the most time consuming. So logically that's the thing I cut out. Um, if those were 25-minute videos, then bear in mind that that took me pretty much a whole Sunday morning to shoot. You have to ink up the pens, you have to set up the camera, you have to assemble all the equipment, the paper, 2 types of paper, stuff for brushes. You had the brown benchmark, which is my finger. You had the eyedropper of death. You had the bastard brush, etc. That just takes a lot of time. And then there's the cleaning of the pens, which takes time. I mean, it's 5 pens, and sometimes fairly assertive inks, so to speak. So that just takes a while. Then there is the fact of the editing of the video. 4 types of tests, 4 different sound effects, putting together the introductory talk, and then the actual writing part. Converting the video takes time. So don't get me wrong, I love doing it, but when you're pressed for time, you cut out the thing that's the biggest chunk of taking up your time. So here's my idea. I'm going to continue Inkcyclopedia as Inkcyclopedia Lite. I'm going to put that right here in my channel. It's going to be basically a stripped down version of Inkcyclopedia. I'm going to give you a writing sample with all 5 of the pens that you've come to know and love. I will go through them here because not everyone who may see this may be familiar with Inkcyclopedia. There is maybe a bit of a test where I throw some water on the ink. That's going to be it. No brown benchmark, no eyedroppers, just me, pens, paper, water. There's not going to be copier paper. It's just going to be some Clairefontaine paper, which I use for my regular reviews as well, and that's what I can do. So I'm sorry I can't bring you the full-fledged Inkcyclopedia, but at this point in time I just can't justify the time expenditure. Sorry. So maybe one day. Now, what am I going to do today? Today we'll be talking about ink, but first I'll briefly go through the pens, and then I've talked more than enough. You want to see this ink. So here's the deal. For fine writing, I'm going to be using this Surwex MB. It has a fine nib, and the interesting thing about this pen is that it's also a flex nib. So that's 2 birds with 1 stone. I can use this for fine writing samples as well as flexi samples, which I will give you. Medium is going to be my trusty Monteverde, painful I can't remember the name, Artista Crystal, of course. That's the one. Simple medium nib, stamped Iridium Point, Germany. Check out one of my latest videos on that, you see? And then we have for broad, very simple Lamy Safari. It's an evergreen, but boy is it broad and boy is it wet. So that is fine. Well, actually it's broad, but it's fine to use it, I guess. Then we have my Italics Parsons Essential with a 1.1 millimeter italic nib on there, which gives you an idea of what it's like to write with an italic pen. And then finally a 6 millimeter Pilot Parallel, very simple pen. This is just for the broad strokes, people who may want to use this for calligraphy purposes, etc. You'll be served with this pen. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? Today we'll talk about an ink that was actually supplied to me by 2 people at roughly the same time. Dennis from La Couronne du Con sent this with an order I had coming in, and then at the same time Joost Appelboom sent me one of these to review here. So yeah, if that is not a divine signal that I should just do this Inkcyclopedia Lite, I don't know what is. And of course I'm talking about this fancy new Montblanc ink that is because Montblanc has been in existence for 90 years, so Meisterstück 90 years, permanent gray, and it says this ink fulfills all the demands made on it by a durable, good working fountain pen. Obviously a Montblanc. Well, as you can see, I don't have any Montblancs in the lineup, so we'll have to see how that works. Okay, brief rundown. What is it? It's a gray and it's permanent. That means you can pour water over it and it will remain legible. Very cool. I don't know if this is an iron gall ink. It doesn't say so anywhere, but it does say that it is permanent for documents, and I don't think they're kidding. It's a very interesting dark gray. It has nice shading. It's a very cool ink to use. So let's see what this ink is all about. That's what we're going to do next. I hope this is going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay guys, here we go with this fascinating ink. Let's start with a fine nib. As you can see right now, it's a fairly light grey, not very saturated or extremely well shaded. We move on to a medium nib that is quite a bit wetter than this fine, but I couldn't apply too much pressure because it is a flex nib. And then it would possibly interfere with the thickness of the line. Now we move over to broad, also a wet nib. I have used this ink in a couple of other pens and I found it to be very consistent in flow, not a lot of skips or weird startup problems. So I do think Montblanc did a nice job here in the way they created this ink. Okay, and then finally we have italic, 1.1 millimeter. There you have it. Okay, so what can we glean from this? As to shading, I think that for relatively dark ink, you actually get quite a decent bit of shading. If you look at this, these bits are here, this is still a bit wet, so you can't really check that out, but in the italic as well, you do see a nice bit of shading that's just a bit lighter here and a bit darker there, which I think is very cool. For example, if you look at Montblanc Oyster Grey, that is lighter, but it is also, I think, just a tad less legible. And this is a nice dark ink, but it still has some shading, which is very cool. Okay, let's have a look at a 6mm Pilot Parallel. For the calligraphers out there. Calligrapher's nightmare, last letter doesn't fit. Alright, that's why we should always check how much space we have. Okay, let me see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some more medium writing. As to drying, you see it actually dries relatively quickly, which is quite cool. I mean, this is a pretty wet nib, and in that Safari it's a very broad nib, even that has dried by now, and this is Clairefontaine paper, so it is very smooth and not the most absorbent ever. Now, what I very much like to know is this. How waterproof is permanent? Because Montblanc makes a nice claim there, saying it is quite, it is a permanent ink, right? That's what it says on the box. It says grey, and it says permanent grey right there. Well, well, well. If that's a permanent grey, how permanent is that? I can't expose this to sunlight for, 20 million days right now. But I'll tell you what I can do. I think it's pretty much dry. Yeah. Here we got some water. How do you like them apples? Nothing happens. You just pour all this water on there, nothing happens. And then you could say, yeah, well, maybe that's always the case. Well, what I have here is some green ink. This is an Akkerman ink. They're Hofvijvergroen. No, what was it? Hofkwartiergroen. Doesn't matter, it's just a green. And I think that it's a pretty wet pen I put that in, so I'm blowing it gently. That's what she said. Just trying to make that dry up a bit to give a fair comparison. I think that's pretty much dry. Well, it's now anyway. We put some water on there. And as you can see, that immediately responds and starts to run, basically. Whereas this ink just keeps up with the water, no problem whatsoever. And I have to say, I think that is excessively cool. That really is a permanent ink. So, kudos to Montblanc, well done. Guys, this is Inkcyclopedia Lite, no copy of paper, no other tests. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.